Hey everybody, welcome to another teaching episode of Real Brave Live. I'm happy to have back with me today. I'm going to bring on the screen right now, Nick Saya.
Hello, hello.
I didn't even ask you if this is okay, but I'm going to do it anyway. Who is the guitar messiah? There we go. I did it.
Yeah, that's just fine. Feel free.
I'm going to leave that up there because I was very proud of myself. Actually, I should probably credit Kevin with that. So we're continuing our discussion on this thing that I've been playing for over 30 years, and I still don't understand it. But luckily, we have someone that does. So, Nick, we were talking, I'm putting it on screen right now, how can I develop my own playing style? This is part 2. We're talking about finger picking, and we discussed a little bit of this. So where do you want to take us today?
So last week we had gone in on an example of a song that kind of utilizes fingerpicking. We worked on Freight Train by Elizabeth Cotten. And I also just want to be clear that there's so many different styles of fingerpicking. I mean, it's not really a monolithic term. It's just the idea of playing without a pick. But there's like Western classical style. There's flamenco guitar. There's all sorts of different kinds of folk music. We were really talking about one really specific style. But if it interests you, pursue it. And then
No, I'm going to let you go and definitely do your thing here because you know better than me. So go.
For sure, yeah. So anyway, where I like to take things from there is like small ways that you can actually work on your own to start wrapping your mind or really wrapping your hands around this kind of playing. So if we look back at what we were doing in the last one of these, we have this picking pattern on our C chord that sounds like this. Nice, pretty kind of calm sound. There's not a crazy amount going on there. The place to start, if you really want to get into what's happening and how you can do it on your own, is to take out the more like upper register stuff, this. Take that out for now, put it over to the side, and just focus on the low notes that you're playing with only your thumb, which sound like this. And this is pretty simple. All you got to do here is play your third finger, 3rd fret on the A string, and your second finger, 2nd fret on the D string. Those notes are C and E. And you just alternate them in quarter notes, like 1 note per beat. And you can kind of meditate with this for a while and just really think about your time and your rhythm. Think about how you're breathing along with it.
Breathing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, if you don't have a metronome with you, or you're playing with people or playing a show where you probably don't want to have a metronome on next to you, your breath is your best internal clock. That's really like what you have to work with. And that's kind of how rhythm started, was just, imparting that to other people. So, depending on how long or shallow your breath is, you try to just be really aware of your inhale and your exhale and how that's corresponding to your time. The more you think about that, the less likely you are to rush the time and get faster or get slower or do stuff like that. You just want to keep them really even and calm.
So that's interesting because yesterday I was talking to, not to interrupt you, but this is a really interesting subject too. I was talking to Terrence yesterday, who's one of our vocal instructors, and we were talking about breath and relaxation and how getting vocal instructor and how getting the sound out, you have to relax because a lot of times you go on stage like this, you can't get it out.
Yep, exactly.
What you're saying is breathing while playing and staying relaxed is actually, it also comes to your hand too, because you want to be able to relax your hand and
relax your hand and just relax your whole body and relax, especially your sense of time and your sense of rhythm. I mean, one of the things that I'm always super jealous of as a guitarist, when I play with a saxophone player or a trumpet player, or any sort of wind-based instrument, especially in improvised music, is that everything they're playing is so based on the human breath and the human voice, and I guess even more so for vocalists. And guitar, you can kind of just play endlessly. Like there's no stopping. There's no need to stop ever.
Right.
So I think it's easy to forget where, what makes music relatable and where it's coming from, and remember to actually like bring it back to your body and bring it back to sort of like the humanity of it without getting too heady about it.
No, that's good. No, that's good. Folks, breathe. Please breathe.
Yeah. breathe. Like not just when you're going to perform. Breathe when you're practicing. Like practice the act of actually like making this instrument an extension of your body, and the best way to do that is by like feeling your breath against it. All that good stuff. So when it comes to this exercise, we've got these two pretty simple notes that you can get really deep with in terms of just your feel. And when you feel ready, you go to the G chord. So for this, all I'm doing is I'm playing G, 3rd fret on the low E string, so G, and your open D string. So again, I said this in the last session too, but for this style of fingerpicking, you're always alternating between the lowest note of the chord and whatever note is on the D string. So you're kind of constantly bouncing off the D string and the root of the chord.
Cool.
And I would say just spend some time with C and G, just in this style, and really get your thumb used to doing this. Get it to the point where you don't even have to think about it. That way, when you add in the rest, your thumb can just be on autopilot. And that way it gives you time to start to be able to focus on what your other fingers are doing, because you've already just got your thumb locked down. So I would say that that's step one of learning how to put the pick down and play some pretty stuff with all 5 fingers.
Cool. I was trying to zoom in on your hand there, because you're alternating right hand, you're going from the A string to the D string, and then you're alternating from the low E string to it look like.
Right. So the first note, again, is just the lowest note of the chord, no matter which string that's on. And then the second note is going to be whatever note is on the D string. So for C, we have, here, I can just like move up here.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's not, the zoom's not working.
Yeah, so let's get a good close shot. We have C and E, and then for G, we have the low G on the E string, and then you're just open D string. Hopefully
and what's beautiful about that is that there's not a lot of movement in the left hand. So for all you beginners out there,
there's you're really just taking this small little, here, I'll come back here again. Little diagonal shape, and then just moving it over one string.
There it is.
So there you go. And then the second exercise that I like to do, this is less specifically tied to that song, but I've always found that when you're learning a new skill, kind of tying into Dan what you just said, is that you always want to be looking for ways to like isolate that thing that you're working on. So this exercise is gonna be taking your the hand that goes on the fretboard, put it down on your lap, just put it aside, and that way we can only focus on our right hand, and you can really pick any strings in any pattern. I would maybe start with your top 3 strings and something like that. This pattern is just G to E and then B to E. And honestly, like I like these 3 strings because to me they sound kind of pretty. They just make a little E minor chord, and you can spend some time just in this case, I'm using my thumb and my 3rd finger, but you can do it with any fingers you like. You should try to do it with as many combinations as possible, so you can just be able to do lots and lots of things. I'll try to switch it. Now this is my thumb and my 1st finger, and get creative with it. Now I'm doing thumb, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. And it'll feel kind of weird at first because you're not used to this sort of like claw thing. But all these really all you want to be doing is try to work on your dexterity and get comfortable articulating melodies or chords on the strings like this. And again, with these 3 strings, I think it sounds very pretty. So it's actually kind of nice to practice.
Yeah.
And
it's a really easy exercise playing, watching YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. You can really, I mean, yeah, you can do it while you're watching TV or just zoning out. It's, you know, it can either be very meditative and you can really zero in on what you're doing, or you can just let your hand go on autopilot. There's value in both, I think.
Yeah. A little zen.
So yeah, those are definitely 2 small ways to, you know, kind of break into it. They'll get, if you focus on those 2 things, you'll have a start, and your hand will be getting comfortable with patterns like this. And then from there, you know, you listen to songs that you're interested in. If you hear something that you think might be fingerpicked on guitar, you take some time and try to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. I
had a student recently who wanted to learn the song "Illicit Affairs" by Taylor Swift. Which surprisingly has a really complicated fingerpicking pattern. So I had kind of just been working through this, and it was really fun. We went through, and she had done some kind of country style fingerpick stuff before, but it's really fast. So we worked on really using our ears to kind of like isolate the guitar part in this very produced track and like figure out exactly like, okay, which strings are they playing and like in what order, and like how do I go about hearing this, because there's a lot happening at once. So yeah, it can be done.
Well, like in any kind of lesson, we have a myriad of ways of teaching. One of them is something we use at studios called Practice Pad. We also use a specific method that we try to get people to learn things. We really try to talk about breaking things down into pieces. Well, finding out what people want.
Yeah.
With that's, we call that discovery. And then once we find a direction, we're looking for a way to break down very simple pieces of music, which is what you're just doing right now. So maybe for that specific, any older Taylor Swift song, especially
most Taylor Swift songs, I feel like have some sort of like folksy guitar part in the background at least.
Well, surprisingly, her new album is excellent. I say that surprisingly because her last 2 albums, I have 2 girls at home, so they are absolutely in love with her. Her last album, her most recent one, is really good.
I think that's the one with Illicit Affairs on it.
It might be, yeah. I don't know the names of the songs. I just hear them all the time.
I am low-key a huge Taylor Swift fan. So
yeah, I guess.
Come from years of teaching students Taylor Swift songs. I was really impressed.
Hey, you've heard it here first, folks.
Taylor Swift slaps.
But again, like taking the key to a breakthrough, as far as I'm concerned, and back me up or refute this, please, is really taking things into its smallest, most not obscure, but most simple form. Mm-hmm. Looking at it and going, okay, now this is a major part of the song. Let's try to get this one measure because it's got some really important pieces. And, you know, it's got this right hand finger picking method. It's got this one thing, just chord that she's holding that you've been working on. Get that, and then we work on that's kind of deconstruction. You were just kind of talking about that a little bit. How do you use that in the lessons?
Yeah, I mean that's almost exactly how I put it. In lessons, funnily enough, is like taking things and really trying to like find the like smallest little information kernel that you can trace it down to. And Matt, for anyone watching, if you ever played a sport or like been on any sort of sports team, this is extremely common. With that, you know, I played a lot of baseball as a kid, and they would have us do drills. They would have us, you know, do just like small little like motion drills for throwing and stuff like that. And you would kind of see then like you would warm up with that, and then you would play the game, and you would see, oh yeah, this weird little like exercise. I don't know really what I'm doing with my hands right now, but it's been a while.
That's not baseball.
But like you start to see how these small little motion drills would actually like inform larger things that you were then talking about or that you were then having to do in the game. And it's the same thing with music, where you spend time, you know, if you're trying to get some song that has like fast finger picking, you spend time just building up this story of like small little motions that you become comfortable with. And then all of a sudden you're presented with a larger idea that seems more complicated, but you prepared all these little kernels.
Yeah.
And they will fit together and kind of bring you to a larger thing. The Taylor Swift song, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, this is the pattern. It's faster, actually. Oh, that's not the right chord. Something like that. It has a capo and I'm not using one, so it's a little harder. But it's this very fast pattern.
What's that right-hand pattern that you're doing?
So I'll slow it down. This is what we did with the student. We would go from this. And then we would think about, okay, what's just happening with the bass note? And it's really this heartbeat of like. Something like that. They don't play the exact same thing every time, but you have. And we would isolate different fingers and even work on like putting the guitar down and just tapping out that rhythm, like. Which is
I like that, what you just said. That's really cool, because that's important. That's an important component. I always say to students that take drum lessons here, become a good drummer, and I guarantee you'll become a really good musician later on, because some of the hardest stuff in music is not just playing the notes, it's actually getting the rhythm down.
My students get so tired of me. I almost everything that we learn that's a little bit hard, I usually have them start by like literally, okay, put the guitar down and tap on your chest or tap on your knees or on your table or something and tap out like the rhythm for one measure of what we're doing, and then bring it back to the guitar. And I think that it can be a little tedious sometimes, but I think it's so useful. And then like once you realize that you've internalized that rhythm, kind of like what we were both saying earlier, that you strip away everything else that's like distracting you from this one thing, where it's like if you're struggling with the notes but you're also struggling with the rhythm and you just can't really play it properly, it's like, okay, we're just going to focus on rhythm for a second and then we'll have that. We don't have to think about anything else, and then we come back to the guitar and then we can focus on other stuff because we already have that one aspect of it.
That's the spirit of breaking stuff down. Deconstruction is talking about the individual parts and thinking about them strategically, like you have rhythm, which he was just doing,
Yeah. And also this picking pattern, like there's more going on here. But if you just think of it in like with your two hands, it makes it sound simpler to me because I realize like, oh, it's just this like ba ba da ba da ba. And then when you come back, it lets your ear focus on the important parts a little bit more. At least, again, personally to me, it helps me sort of like clear out some of the noise. And I think that helps people as well.
No, I agree. It's hard as a beginner to understand. I think of this when I'm looking at another instrument that I don't know how to play. Mm-hmm. Let's take violin, for instance. And I was trying to learn the basics, and we can discuss that why later.
Oh my God, yeah. It's so hard.
It's so hard. And but when the teachers were breaking it down into its individualized components, I understood it better because I spoke that language too. I understood the rhythm, I understood the hand position, I understood the right hand position, I understood the notes. So then putting them all together one by one is kind of like, all right, you're going to have to walk before you can run, right? Mm-hmm. Every baby in the world gets to walk eventually, right? Mm-hmm. But running is going to be a little bit hard for them. You really have to take it in the individualized pieces, and you just explained it beautifully. That's awesome.
And also, if we're with the baby metaphor, you also have to remember that when a baby, a young person is learning to walk, like people are extremely patient with them, like, and get excited when they come up with when they figure out like some small step on the way to learning to walk.
Yeah.
And when you're teaching yourself guitar, when you're learning guitar on your own, you a little bit have to be your own parent there. So you do have to remember to be patient with yourself, and cut yourself slack, and like get excited when you have some kind of a breakthrough, even if it's like a small breakthrough. And especially once you start working on the stuff that we've been talking about, of like these, kind of like small exercise-based things, you have to remember that like as you're putting in this kind of time, like it's a process, and you don't want to let yourself get frustrated by these kinds of small things. You want to just remember that they're like building to something larger, and give yourself kind of the time to enjoy that and focus on it.
Well said. Isolation, we talked about this, isolating the different components when learning any new skill is important. I think you said that beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Developing your own style of playing takes different stabs at different things. I don't know why I said stabs.
Different attempts, routes.
Very, very strange. But no, I think you explained that beautifully today. And I think that rounds off today's discussion. Do you have anything to add on developing the beginnings of developing playing with finger picking?
We went over 2 exercises just to kind of recap. We had the thumb to G, and just repeating that. And then we had our little two great places to start that will get you pretty far. But in terms of going beyond that, like I was starting to say this with the last one, is that you let yourself be creative. Like I said, I was starting with just my thumb and my third finger. What happens with these top 3 strings if I try to do that same pattern with only my index, middle, and third finger? Oh, a little harder. Maybe that's something I want to practice. Or pick different strings or anything. It doesn't really matter. I mean, and that's part of what makes learning this sort of thing exciting to me, is that you actually get to sort of like invent your own exercises and just like mess around and see if you come up with a cool thing.
Cool indeed. Well, thank you for your time today on this.
For sure.
Nick Saya, the guitar messiah.
Also a mess.
Sorry about that. My sense of humor. Glad to know that you played baseball. We should talk about that more.
Yeah, definitely. It was a weird season this year, but it was nice.
I know. Well, we'll definitely talk about that more. Hang in there. I'm gonna hit stop. This has been another episode of the teaching version of what we do here, Real Brave Live. Thank you, Nick, for your time. Folks, see you again real soon.
Have a good one. Take care.